broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing after-shows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows. Interviewing celebrities and showrunners. And bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Keven Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Welcome, AFTERBUZZ TV Bar Rescue fans. This is your host, Keven Undergaro. And if I sound like I'm not in studio, or underwater, hopefully not, because I'm not in studio. Had a medical emergency this morning with a family member. Everything is A-okay. Thank goodness, my friend, fellow Bar Rescue
aficionado,
obsessed fan,
yep.
Yes, aficionado, even better than obsessed fan, John Carle, has agreed to come into studio. John actually is an executive at the Collective.
I am.
And if any of you know, the Collective is kind of the Mac Daddy place of all digital entertainment. They represent all the big YouTube stars and whatever. So he's as healthy a guy as you're going to get to have on the panel. John, any bar or restaurant experience other than just being a drunk like me?
Yeah, I actually worked in bars and nightclubs starting when I was 16 years old. I started working in the DJ booth doing lights at a 21 and over club, and then throughout high school, college, and then up until when I moved to LA when I was 29 years old, I did bars and nightclubs all the time. So a lot of
I love it.
There.
All right,
yeah.
gravitas, people. See, I've got, my big thing is I did it for 2 years, and I did go to bartending school to do it because I knew I was going to be so green. But I'm just a fan of brand building and businesses in general, regardless of the business. And we've learned, at AFTERBUZZ, we've learned so much about general business from this show. In fact, when it first came on the air, John, I don't know if you know this, because I know you know a lot of the AFTERBUZZ staff.
Yep.
But it was required viewing. I forced them all to watch because a lot of the principles that I was building AFTERBUZZ on, they weren't buying into. And I was like, okay, familiarity breeds contempt. You're not listening to me because you guys know me too well. So I want you to look at somebody else, who's had far more success than I have. And not all of them love the show, but man, they all respected John. And I think it really helped our business immensely, 3 or 4 years ago, with all the principles that we seem to get every week. And I can't recommend this show enough to not just bar owners, restaurant owners, coffee shop owners, but just business people in general. There's always an amazing takeaway. And one of the things, knowing John Taffer, that I've always said is that, John, it's amazing that you are the world's #1 bar and nightclub expert, which is amazing to be #1 in anything.
Yep.
But in the world. But I said, I think there's more there. There's more just small business and just business in general and management.
Yeah,
you get the same impression when you watch the show, John?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, coming from that industry and then doing what I do now in an executive level, and I've learned a lot from just managerial techniques from John, just seeing how to interact with your employees and stuff like that. And I think one of the most useful management books that I've read since, coming into an executive role is actually Taffer's book about bar management. But you could literally just take out bar and replace it with any other industry, and 95% of that book still holds true.
That's right. I know. Wow. So already we're off to a great start. You're speaking my language. And Mia Mastriani, who usually co-hosts with us, I believe she's on the road fixing bars. But it'll be great to get you guys together as well.
I would love that
at some point. So hopefully we'll get you some more. So so tonight's episode, unnecessary toughness, and John, we're probably going to debate this. I normally never give any Bar Rescue episode anything below an A-. Normally, I mean, I can think of maybe 2 occasions of the 100 episodes we've done, and with this one, I kind of feel like it's a B for me. and I'm going to explain why as
Okay.
it goes on. What were your thoughts?
My initial thought,
General thought.
my initial thought was this bar had one major problem, and I think that's why it didn't feel as strong as the other ones, because usually you could look at a bar and you see so many problems that all need to be fixed, and you see a great change with a bunch of people. This really just felt like one person was the issue, and I think that's why it didn't feel like as much of a rescue, because you literally only rescued one person here, it felt like.
Very well stated. And I didn't think about it like that. You're probably right. I think for me it went even a little further.
Okay.
And as I did some due diligence, with the Bar Rescue updates, so,
Yep.
going to, I don't know if you're familiar with that site, we're not affiliated with them, but, we love what they do. And just kind of finding out just a little bit more background. I was disappointed, but I'll get into why as it goes on. But let's give some background information for the intro. So,
Yep.
It's named the Arena, and we have this kind of this guy Mike, who is a weightlifting bully of an owner, and he was a former GM of another chain
For 10 years,
and
too.
10 years, right? So
Yeah.
he does have the experience, which is why this starts to make me suspect, which I'll get into later. But one of the quotes which I found just such a turnoff was, "I'm tired of people telling me what the fuck to do." It
Yep.
was just that tone. God, is this just? I mean, again, from the intro, is this someone you'd ever want to work for, John, or hang out with,
No.
or partner with, or anything?
No, not at all. Like, there needs to be some level of encouragement to make you do the things you have to do, because, granted, we both have jobs that we get to do what we love, but, there are times when it's trying, and when it's trying, you need somebody that can bring you up, not bring you down.
I feel like, so let me ask you this, do you know people like this guy?
Not in my current business, luckily, but
Oh my God,
but
you're lucky.
but I definitely do know
Business?
people who are like that, so, yeah.
Okay, so for me, it struck a chord because I saw this in the bar business as a bar patron.
Yep.
You'd go into these bars, wanting, especially as a young guy. As a young guy, it's like, an asshole guy like this, he doesn't have time for you. He should, because you're the one who's going to be spending money, not the girls coming in.
Yeah.
But as a young guy, when you in your 20s and you go into bars, I would see a lot of these guys, owners or doormen or managers, who were just fucking thugs and so shitty to especially a young guy in their 20s. And back then, even physically, you're not really developed as a guy. One of the things that no one really ever tells you, and I know you're a fan of MMA and wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
But really, after 25 is when you fill out. So when you're 21, 22, you're not who you are. And I just think of all those kind of guys that would bully me and my friends as an owner. But then I also worked in the carnival business, and it was filled with those guys. And in that business, it was almost the law of the land. You wasn't like you would go complain to corporate if a guy like that threatened you or beat you up or made a hostile work environment. It was the carny business.
Yep,
And
you just
guys
dealt
like
with
that
it.
would actually smack you.
Mhm.
And, it was, and so I just, as soon as I saw this meathead, I just was like, yeah, and that's right. And you've got your bar is totally failing, but you know everything. You're crapping everyone. And you know what? Your body's all blown up and your body's perfect because you obviously are so into yourself. You're spending all that time in the gym. That's not going to the wayside, but the business is. And again, this is what it all appears to be, because as it unfolds, I think I see things differently.
Mhm.
But hearing how many times he threatened, I'm going to choke someone out. I'm going to choke someone out.
Yeah, he said that a lot.
I mean, really, just if this wasn't the guy, it was great because in the carny business, we had this guy, Joe Gear, and if anyone knows my life and our reality show, he's still with us as our security. And he wasn't a bully. But, man, it was always fun when he got the bullies. This would be a guy that he'd make cry, and it's clearly what this guy seemed to have needed. We see that he's closed out 4 retirement accounts. He's $1 million in debt.
2 kids with no college fund anymore.
Yeah, that's gone. And, you know, here's the other thing, again, that made the show a little odd for me. The exterior looked nice.
It did.
Not amazing. You know, the little Ann pub was lame. But out of all the ones we've seen, it looked, you know, because the building itself was a beautiful building, it looked nice. And when you went in there, inside, sure, when you focus on the ripped chairs and all that stuff, it looked like, okay, it looked like it was tired and this, that, and the other thing. However, you know, a lot of it is lighting. And when they shoot the show,
you have to put the lights up for it, yeah.
That's right. They bleach the whole bar with light.
Yep.
So you don't have, so now go back to your DJ days.
Oh, yeah.
How important is lighting as a DJ?
Oh yeah, I mean that's it sets the whole ambiance of the room. If you're too bright, and you know, let's be honest, we've all been to a bar and you've seen one girl under special lighting, and then lights come up in last call, and it's a totally different experience. At this time, when they're shooting the show, it's already at that elevated lighting experience. So
right, and so you're not getting a glamorous portrait,
right,
of the place. So, but you know, still seeing, you know, the diamond plate wall, which is always very attractive.
Yep.
You know, in a bar. I mean, yeah, it didn't look as bad. And it goes to your point that, you know, really we had one problem.
Yep.
And it was the guy. You know, we had the wife was a little bit, I'm the best bartender ever, and I thought that was going to kind of pay off because I thought she was one of those know-it-all ones. She really wasn't so much. It was interesting the way they edited it. They had some silly music playing. I don't know if you noticed that at the, you know, kind of like like showing this Neanderthal kind of going through his place in front of everyone, which, you know, I thought was cool. It was almost like at first, and again, I'm going just chronologically speaking. At first, I was like, "Well, these people have Munchausen syndrome or whatever that syndrome is." You know, where you actually, you actually cling to your oppressor.
Oh, you know? Not Munchausen's, the Stockholm.
What is it?
Stockholm syndrome. Yep.
What is Munchausen?
That's the one that Eminem's mom had, where they put sickness onto their kid or something like that.
Oh, that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
No,
Stockholm's you identify with your captor.
Sorry, guys. So I feel like I thought there was a little bit of that going on, and normally I hate when the millennials pull out of their back pocket. It's a hostile work environment. I'm being bullied. I normally hate that, but in this case, I mean, recently we saw, like, that's actual assault. I'm going to choke someone out.
Yeah.
And the poor guy, Vinny, like, was just shell-shocked.
Yeah, he was battered.
You know? Battered, right?
Absolutely.
And so obviously... Oh, go ahead, John, please.
I was going to say, well, when you get to the actual recon part of it, it wasn't just him being hostile to the employees, because a hostile work environment is bad, but it was also hostile to the customers. Like, if
so
your customer says... Yeah.
So we send in a couple of grad students, okay, that would be the target demo.
Yep.
Not so young to be college students, not so old to be professors, right in the sweet spot. And people, you know, usually have a little bit more money.
Yep.
And he was terrible to them. Oh, he was like violent and what was his comment when he walked away the second time? It was almost like, go fuck yourself. I forget what he said. It was something. Yeah,
something along those lines. And it was really just like, oh, I hope they choke on those steak tips or something like that. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was, you know, the guy was apologizing to him that the food wasn't cooked properly. And it's like, no, if your kitchen didn't do what they were supposed to, then you should be apologizing to the customer, not the vice versa on that.
Right.
Yeah, that was was really weird.
So obviously John has his, that's it, I'm going in, and he's like, I'm going to talk to his abused people first. And he does, and they say hostile work environment. And then he goes after me. John goes at him pretty hard. You're a dick. He looks like a dick, walks like a dick. It's a dick. I mean, he really he undresses the guy. And, but some good things. You're a degrader, not a motivator.
Well, I like one thing that you always bring up, Kevin, is John likes to take different approaches with different rescues. And what he did here that I thought was really interesting was instead of him just going off on Mike right then and there, he said, I'm not even going to talk to you tonight, talk to your employees, and had them say this is hostile to him. And I thought that was really interesting that it was the employees being the first ones to point out the problems.
You're right, excellent, and that's an excellent note. And again, it's like John God, he always finds that way. It's just a different way in. He doesn't, and I don't often do this. I always go in the same way, with everybody. And I love that he does have that ability, and he must have thought that was going to be the way. And at least from the show, it appears like it was.
Can we talk about that shot? Can we talk about that shot, by the way? The gas chamber shot. You saw that. That was the guy sucking in the fumes from the lit shot. Like, what was that?
Oh yeah. Oh my God. What? Yeah. What was that?
So
we didn't even get into like the I know the thing's lit on fire and how silly all that was, but the guy sucking in the fumes with the straw as he's leaning down under the bar. Like, please explain.
So I've seen a variation of this when I was in my early 20s. I'm not gonna lie, I made mistakes when I was in my early 20s. But even how this guy did it was weird, and it's like you took this really not healthy way of consuming alcohol and making it more dangerous by putting your hand on top of the lit cup and then flipping it over and using a straw to suck down the fumes.
Okay,
it was unreal.
Sucking down the fumes does what? Does it increase the high of the? Does it increase the buzz?
I think that's the theory behind it. Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's like just consuming vapor in a different method.
Just weird.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Literally, someone could die. That does not sound like it's healthy. Because I don't know what they were doing. As we were watching this, but now that I guess I'm the old guy, so you.
Well, no, I mean it's one of those things. Anybody who's done dumb stuff in college and stuff like that, we've all seen things like that, but that was like the extra level. Like I remember when I was in college, being at a bar and people were doing Statue of Liberty shots. You've seen those, right?
No.
So you have one of the lit shots that's on fire, and you also have 151 on your thumb. So they light their thumb on fire. And then they do the lit shot, they blow out the shot, they take the shot, and then they blow out their thumb. And I'm like, if one of these guys doesn't swallow enough of the booze, he's going to spit 151 on his finger and just send a fireball into the air. And this was actually weirder to me than seeing that in person.
That's just strange.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So John tells him you're a bouncer, not an owner, right?
Yep.
He hems him pretty good. And again, I find that is true. And God, it just struck a chord with me because we've seen so many of these guys.
Yep.
We have, let's talk a little, quickly the experts. We have Andrew who's doing the bar. We have Ryan who's doing the food. And I thought they were great. I thought Ryan probably, he went from the horn rim glasses and then in the kitchen. I feel like he was edited down. I feel like this guy's got a lot to say, and he could be very interesting down the road.
Yeah, the thing that stood out about Ryan is he was working with Jimmy the cook, and I think the thing is Jimmy just maybe he had an off night or something with the steak tips and stuff like that, because he didn't seem like he was a bad cook. So there wasn't a lot of correcting, and that's where they made sure that Mike was actually learning how to cook the food, as opposed to
it's just getting weird.
Yeah.
Which I'll tell you why I think, but yes.
Because normally you'd see the cook just ripping apart, messing up and stuff like that. But it's like, no, Jimmy was actually doing a really good job. He was just stifled because he wasn't allowed to switch the menu ever.
And I thought that Andrew was great too. He was, he had a lot of panache. I really liked him. I liked his drinks.
Have you been to his bar that's out here in LA?
No, what's his bar?
Bird's Cafe. I was writing it down when we were watching, so I'm gonna probably go this week since it's light
Good
week with
man,
work and stuff.
John. Yeah. So, see, Marissa, that's what I'm talking about. Love that. Yeah, it's funny because we got away from all the field trips. I used to always try to pop into all the LA bars that John's done over. That's really cool. Yeah, I'd like to. I'd love to know. We're always so blessed to have Mia, and my future wife Lisa Marie Joyce Undergaro, who I just adore. And I'm also a Vic Vegas fan, and Phil Wills is just a straight out gangster.
Yep.
He is unbelievable. I love our experts. I really did like these guys. Although again, to your point, we didn't really get to see much out of them.
Yeah, and I think
I'll
it was
get into my theories on that later.
Yeah, and like even normally you send in the experts and it's like, oh well, this bar needs to be clean. Like we didn't even see that. Like there was not a single comment about even dust or anything like that.
No, and so now we go to stress test, right?
Yep.
And we focus on what we are led to believe is the one problem, Mike, and then you see Mike completely focused, hustling out the food. Vinny, of course, falls apart, but we knew that was coming because, as you said, battered wife.
Yep, absolutely.
Obviously he wasn't going to be able to hang.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't really make a big deal of it. In fact, they didn't even pay it off.
No.
He wasn't even there for the reopen, but he's coming. So God only knows in editing what really happened with that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Before editing, what really happened.
Right.
Because something had to really have happened for him to have come unglued.
Yep. I feel
like in editing, I wish, for the sake of this episode, they made a little bit more of that the story. And again, I never criticize these guys, but I feel like that should have been more the story in addition to just putting all this on Mike's shoulders.
Yep.
Because you would have had a better episode, and you would have avoided what my ultimate thoughts are, which I'll give you later.
Yeah,
you were going to say something, John? Go
yeah,
ahead.
he walked out. Like that's a moment when somebody just pulls off their microphone and is like, "I'm out of here." Like that's
right.
That's something major happening because it's not just a character of a TV show. It's like a manager in a business just walked out. Like
14 years.
Yeah.
14 years there, and it's like, where was the moment of like, and I think that John didn't push it because he knew the guy really was loyal for 14 years. He knew the guy was trying.
He didn't want to bury him.
Yeah, and maybe where was that moment of getting them together? But maybe whatever happened, he's just probably so pissed he wouldn't come back. He probably just was like, I'm not going to be made to look like a loser.
Yep.
Maybe he was worried about it. Who knows? It just was odd, as was how fast Mike turned it around.
But he also didn't stick to it. That was the interesting thing, is he started out and, somebody was like, oh, these are the wrong drinks, and he wasn't a dick about it. But then slowly towards the end, you started to see it creep out, and it felt like John cut off the stress test before he could fully relapse, too.
But again, why? And John also was kind of cheering him along. He wasn't being his usual rough self with the guy.
Right.
He was like, all right, buddy, you got it. Like, he was more like, so again, what happened that night? What did we see in editing?
Mm-hmm.
Because usually this is where John, it's just, and we've had experts come on and tell us this is the night you get torn down.
Mm-hmm.
And the next from that moment on, it's about building you back up.
Right, and you didn't get that tear down.
No.
So go for it.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, the stress test also, we always talk about how John always has usually the quote of the show. And I think this was the one episode where I think it actually came from one of the customers. And it was when it was one of the guys recording himself on the phone. He goes, I'm actually jealous of the drain because it's gotten more drinks tonight than we have.
Right. No, it's a great line.
Yeah.
Great line. That was hilarious. Again, we've seen that before, so fine. The drinks are getting poured out. Do it again. And and by the way, the girls were so polite. Okay, like they all were obedient and listening and hanging in. And so after the, I mean, it's like we can go to after the stress test, and I know we go to an off location so they can refinish the bar.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked to the groups, and we said we're going to be reintroducing a new menu and all that other stuff.
Yep.
And by the way, the Reuben sandwich looked insane.
Yeah, considering that we're taping right around lunchtime right now, and I haven't eaten, I'm starving because of watching it.
Right.
I did think it was
crazy.
I did think it was interesting that they brought up the whole, rum is popular with millennials, and they made the drink, which was kind of a rum runner style drink, and they called it the Maze Runner, and I was like, oh God, they're so tapping into millennial lifestyle because of that movie franchise right now. Like that was perfect timing to do that.
Right.
Next one's going to be the Hunger Games and stuff like that,
Right, probably. Well, if it works, it works. Well,
exactly.
Well, remember, the Hunger Games kids, in another few years, they'll be growing up and be deeper into the bar scene. So you're right. so John does the kind of the sit down, we call it, and it's like, it doesn't. And he says it doesn't suck to be pissed all the time. And John, by the way, everything John is saying is gold.
Yep.
Statistically, it's proven that if you smile more, you will have more success.
Mm-hmm.
You will be in a better mood. You will get greater results in your goals just by smiling more. It's so easy. And John goes over all this stuff with him, and everything John says is on the money, and it's a great takeaway. And you see John getting a little emotional, and I'm trying to watch this guy's getting emotional back, and not so much. John's eyes in the one-on-ones always get a little misty,
mm-hmm.
and it's usually for different reasons, and it's genuine because I know John.
Right.
But this guy was a little bit, not so much. And again, it's just like I'm putting this whole puzzle together. Let's go to the build-out. I love it. I love when they show John in the hat. He's really taking over. Let's do this. Let's add this. He's going crazy in there, and I love that.
It's great because he's not just like, in the earlier seasons where it felt like he had the designer who was coming in and taking control of a lot of it. This now feels like John's really placing his stamp on it more so.
Well, John, to be truth be told, he always did. He did every morsel because no one is capable.
Right.
So he did everything. And by the way, they had less money back then, so they'd have less people to hire.
Mm-hmm.
So John had to do even more
right.
back then, but they didn't show it. And now I like it. I like when they do the cutaways and we get to see him in action with the sleeves rolled up,
totally,
getting in there and kicking ass. So interesting. And again, I want to ask John why. And if I find out, I'll report next week. But we get the reveal, and voila! Not a bar rescue first, but close. We keep the name the Arena,
mm-hmm.
and I probably can count on one hand how many times we've done that. And in fact, sometimes we do variations of the name.
Right, but this was the exact same.
The canyon, whatever.
Yep.
This is interesting. So, what was your thought on that?
So my thought on that, and this, Keven, like we talked about in the past, part of my past is wrestling, and the phrasing to us whenever we were going to the location of the show was we're going to the arena. So from a sports mentality, and even growing up near New York City, Madison Square Garden was always just that's the arena. So from a perspective of maintaining a sports bar kind of environment with University of Michigan and everything like that, I think it's too good of a name to throw away.
Copy. Okay, well, that makes sense. And it's just that with John, we've heard before that brands get tired
mm-hmm.
and they need a change. So I guess that's the only thing. It's like, well, if a brand is tired and worn out, you usually need a change. Maybe John figured that there's enough of a change in the fact that Bar Rescue is going there. The show's wildly popular, so we're going to get an entire facelift
right.
of the bar. And that's going to give us the rebranding and the small rebranding we need. Maybe that's a reason, or maybe they knew that this guy was a stubborn meathead and was now going to change the name anyway. Was going to change the name back anyway at some point, and maybe they preemptively
bit the bullet on it.
I don't know.
I also think part of it comes from they threw out the stat that 73,000 people per day, whether they're grad students or undergrad, go to the university. So maybe there's that just whole potential of there's so many people coming here that maybe a lot of them never even heard of the arena in the first place. So the brand itself doesn't have that negative association with it to so many people who've never even been there.
Maybe. Maybe.
Just throwing it out there.
We'll find out. Let's talk about the look of the place. I mean, we have a new sign that's nostalgic.
Yep.
We go inside. Oh, by the way, I liked how backing up, I like how John took Mike to a successful bar. I like when John does that. And John says, this is what success looks like. And in that bar, think of all the positive energy, not that angry old man feel, which is what this guy has.
Yep.
Angry old man. And by the way, and I'm sure the same kind of customers were his regulars.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Right? And so, but you go to this place, energy, fun, great lighting. And I thought that was interesting. But again, we don't have that advantage because our place is lit up so bright.
Right.
For filming, we don't know what this place looks like we didn't know what it looked like when it was lit properly. However, I loved the inside sign. I thought was great. I think the copper was nice. I love the big beer machine.
Yep, I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, and bringing in the old sports nostalgia, it's fine. I know going to Bar Rescue updates, a lot of people said that it looked cheap in person. That they were just kind of flattened against the wall. Again, I don't know. I can't speak to that. I know that when you're hanging pictures, again, lighting is important. Dimension's important. If you can bring it off the wall, and that's one thing. If you can hit it with a swash of light, that's another that can really bring out that. Maybe this wasn't done on this episode. I don't know. But overall, it was great, and I love the marching band there at the open. And I love seeing the two kids come in and they're all happy, and John gives them a really big embrace, and John seems so emotional, like man, I just took you from being this angry, mean guy to now a guy who's more positive, and you have this new business, new lease on life. And John's like, I could see it on John's face. He's like, I'm emotional for you because I've been in that position before.
Yeah,
I was not seeing it in return.
Yeah,
which is why I'll get to my overall theory on this. And but before I do that, I want to give a shout out to Spike and to Bar Rescue. Wednesday, during the Podbusters, the commercial segments, they advertised their Bar Rescue Holiday Marathon, and I am so fired up for this because every one of my favorite episodes
were in that promo. Yep.
Yes, the horse in the bar to the pirates, of course.
Yep.
And so many others. It was like just watching the highlight reel. It was like they put together the all-star lineup. Unfortunately, my episodes, my ones I did for Maria weren't in there, or it doesn't seem like it, which was a bit of a bummer.
You don't know the full lineup of it just yet. They might be in there.
No, maybe we may need for mercy. But anyway, I'm so excited. I want to just say, guys, if while wife, mom, or whoever is making the turkey, if you're just sitting there, this is a great thing to have on in the background, veg out. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? Because we're having people over Thanksgiving, we have a big flat panel in the kitchen. I think some Bar Rescue in the bar. I think I'll have Bar Rescue on both channels. Yeah.
Speaking of those Podbusters, I did like the second one that they showed where it was Ryan in the kitchen and it's talking with Jimmy and with Mike. And they made the comment about squeezing the limes, and he was like, yeah, your therapist says, you need to do this for the next 6 months. And then Mike gave the dirty look back, and it's like, I feel like Ryan had a lot more that he said that we lost because there's no way Mike was that positive in the kitchen the entire time.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. Like I said, Ryan has attitude.
Yep.
And I think he's one of those guys you may not always agree with him. Like, he was like, steak tips, that's so 90s dated.
I kind of love steak tips, I'm not going to lie.
I love steak tips. We don't have them here in LA. We have them in Boston, and they're delicious and mouth-watering, so I don't agree with that. But he's got edge, and I feel like he could be a great asset for, again, matching him up with the right kitchen.
Totally.
But you're right. So, okay. So we get the black screen. We're up 220,000 in sales, which is like, wow, amazing, right? And Vinny, of course, has come back to work, which I knew he would, and it was no surprise.
But I want to know what that moment was like.
You want to know about what?
I want to know what the moment was like, where it's like, did Vinny just call Mike the day that it happened the next morning? He's like, yeah, I can't be back while the cameras are there. Or if it was like him working his way back in after, like I want to know how it happened.
No, I think probably like, listen, I don't want to be around this. And I'm sure, usually even those mean guys, when they have their Igors, they know when to whip them and they know when to pat them.
Right.
And I'm sure he said, no, bro, stay home. It's okay. I got this. And by the way, do you think that Mike didn't look at it as like just more spotlight for him?
Oh yeah, definitely. He wasn't even fighting him to bring him back.
Do you think that Mike didn't have an ego? Where he wasn't a guy who loved the spotlight. Many guys who work out like that and have that kind of body.
No, you always want to be spotlight.
The spotlight, right?
100%.
So he was like, no, stay home, bro. It's just more camera time for me, I'm sure. And anyway, so this is what. So I did some due diligence on Bar Rescue updates, and there were complaints from people missing trivia night, and you know, those are the people actually. Any of those kind of nights, you guys in the bar business, those are your dead nights.
Mm-hmm.
Those people spend very little money. They'll buy 1 to 2 drinks at all. You kind of just have them there because you're desperate and you have nothing else.
Yep, and they'll sit at the table for 4 or 5 hours too. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Oh, they sit there forever. And
yep.
Boy, waters, refillable Diet Coke or Coke, whatever. It's,
yep.
Yeah. Ask how many waitresses and waiters want to wait on them. We used to do I forget, it was like a acoustic coffee night on Mondays.
That's brutal.
And it was awful. Yeah, it was awful. Like literally, I think we would do maybe $60, $70 the whole bar.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it was like, okay, delete that one. But there were other people who said, you know, that it was not much change. The decor was cheap, and but it was when I got to, and there were people who thought it was great. They loved the look of it. They thought it was fun. They loved the whole rah-rah Michigan thing.
Yeah, and with that, like one thing is some of these bars, it just is a fresh coat of paint that's needed. Like it's not everything's broken, everything's terrible. It's just freshen it up, and that was something he was lazy about doing. But it wasn't like, you know, there was a foundation falling apart or anything that needs to be totally overhauled.
But we don't even know if he was,
right?
Because again, the place is bleached with lighting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, chairs are ripped, but you know what? It's like, again, we had the diamond plate stainless steel. We had a clean kitchen. We had a clean bar.
Yep.
It wasn't so bad. We don't know what that place was lit like.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for that kind of divey bar in a city area. You know, there's the local dive bar, but then there's the kind of corporate dive bar. I don't know if that makes sense.
That's what I used to work in, ones, so yeah.
Right. So, you know what? So again, it's like, So then I read an interview with Mike.
Right.
And this is what connected the dots for my theory. He was like, I'm a businessman, and basically, I don't care what they make me look like. I don't care if I look like an asshole. I know that this is good for my bar, and that's it. And I really think that he hoodwinked everyone into getting himself a few $100,000 worth of a makeover.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he, and that's why there was no emotions, nothing. It was all just a front. I think he probably is a dick, but he was even more of a dick,
right?
You know, at the beginning, and then all of a sudden, that's why I'm saying that 180, John,
was real fast.
And you know, and again, usually guys who do like workout like that, yeah, they are vain, but they're also very controlling,
mm-hmm.
and they're usually, a lot of them are neat freaks, and you know, he was very well kept.
Yeah.
And he wasn't shy about telling people what to do. So I'm sure things were clean. I'm sure things were organized. I'm sure. And I think it was, he sold the casting people on the fact that he's this big, crazy bully.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he just wanted a free makeover. And I think he did the dog and pony act to get what he wanted. And I think that's why there really wasn't much emotion. And that's why I think the episode, to me, was soft because of that, because he fronted. And by the way, not John's fault, and I don't even blame the Bar Rescue cast. I mean, I'm always ruining the day, John,
mm-hmm. that
the people who slip by, who say, I got to get on this show.
Right.
I have to put on a big act to get what I want, and I'm going to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like he played the game, and he played it too well. Like, he needed to be bad in that stress test. He needed to be, but again, he could run all night long. Why? Because he's in amazing shape and he's on it.
Yep.
Like he's a type A, like OCD guy. I can tell.
And he also had the knowledge base. You know, you don't run a GM chain like in a chain restaurant for 10 years unless you know what you're doing. So, yeah, I hadn't looked that into it, but it makes sense.
He was one of these big shot guys, alpha males, who wanted to be the king of his castle, and he was. And he's not as bad as Canyon Inn owner,
right?
But he's similar. He's a level above him, and you know, he'll make money. He won't be creating a chain. He won't
mm-hmm.
be creating a franchise, but he'll make money. And I'm sure he was, and I'm sure he is. And I know, you know, he had said, I'm bringing back some of the old sports memorabilia they took out, and I'm bringing back the golf game. And I think John would care less about that.
Yeah.
But I feel like this guy really beat the system out of everyone in the history of the show. Here's a Bar Rescue. I think he beat the system worse than everybody because he didn't even get the name change. he basically got what you said: a free makeover,
Yep.
a free remodel, and then tons of publicity for his show. And he has said that one of the reasons why sales were up is because of the show. And people have been coming in.
And when you go and you have one of these, especially now, I think you mentioned it a few weeks ago, or Mia mentioned it, where people will go to something just because they know it's going to be on Bar Rescue, and they'll go and they'll, be a little extra complainy at tables and give the one-liners and stuff like that. So this place was probably talked about, especially all over that college campus, for at least the first few weeks. And then when people go in there and it's like, oh, it's not bad in here, it just becomes a regular spot for them, in the same way that like going to a Chili's is a regular spot for me,
Right.
So
that was my take on things, and I don't know, does that make sense to you?
Yeah,
does that seem plausible?
Yeah, I didn't have the chance. I literally went from watching the show to walking right into the recording, so I didn't get to do the diligence that you did. But hearing that and then your thought process, it totally seems plausible. One of the spots that I used to be at back when I was on the East Coast, I totally could have seen one of our owners, doing something like that where it's like, yeah, our bar isn't a bad bar. There's a few things that could be improved, but if we could get $100,000 in renovations just by, making it look like we're mean managers for a little bit, I'm sure somebody would have thought about doing that had it existed back then.
Yeah, right. And all the free advertising for the show.
Exactly. Especially in a college town. Like the bar I was at, we were right near Yale University. Would have been dumb not to take an opportunity like that.
Kind of disappointing to me. Oh. And that's why I give this episode a B.
Yep.
So that's why I think,
I will say the thing I did love the most about the episode, though, was the food. Like, literally mouth-watering as I'm watching, because it was so different than what you normally see from places. I'm like, oh, all this looks so good right now.
Right. So, I guess because you're a fan of the show, so maybe I'm going too hard on this. I don't know. Maybe I am.
No, it's one of those things where, it wasn't a bad show. It just wasn't one of their better ones. That's all.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll go a little further. Say I think, I don't know. Maybe God, I hope this fucker isn't in a mood. But to me, I thought it was one of the lamer ones.
I can see
it. But it opened strong. It was like the intro. All that was great. The first third, and then when we got the stress test, and he all of a sudden went from tiger to pussycat.
Mm-hmm.
It was like,
Yep.
And then nothing paid off with Vinny, and then it was just like, and then reading after, I was like, mother effer. I could just see him bragging and being a big mouth, bragging everyone in that bar that he pulled one over on the show, and I hate that.
Yeah, he probably has some NDA before he could talk about everything, and then all of a sudden, like a year from now, that's when he's going to like drop it in an interview or something like that.
Yeah. It's just disappointing, and it's what I don't want to see for this show, because that's why 100-something episodes later, this show works, because we do find the greatest personalities.
Mm-hmm.
This was just such a front. I think,
Yep.
I mean, he definitely was an unlikable dick, but he played the game.
Yep.
Anyway, so I know that's my thoughts on this. But John, great job sitting in. And,
Thank you.
Will you be sitting in future weeks?
Yeah, we'll figure out how to make it work with the schedule and stuff like that. I just happened to be available today, so we'll figure out how to get in there. And definitely when Mia's here, I need to meet Mia.
Yeah, you got it. She's amazing. My God, she's
awesome,
beautiful, and she's smart. And my God, like the only problem I have with Mia, it's funny, is every time I throw a bad bar situation at her, she's like lost. It's almost like she's had, because she's so amazing, she's only worked for amazing people. She's also such a positive spirit, a positive person.
Right.
She hasn't worked for the degenerates and the losers. Like, unfortunately, I've had the misfortunation of doing for her. I mean, and so it's a lot of times she has a harder time than me to relate to some of these people. She's more shocked, which is fun.
Yep.
It's interesting again where my Lisa Marie looks like she's taken a few punches along the way.
She's probably thrown a few punches. Let's be honest.
And to defend herself only.
Oh yeah, of course.
But anyway, yeah, she is a delight, and it's and my God, and she is unbelievable at what she does. She's incredible. So, but it's great. It was really great to have you on the show, and I think next week, I think we're off. next week. I don't think there's new episodes. I think that's why they were promoting. I think that's why they're promoting the holiday thing. Marissa, is Bar Rescue on hiatus next week? Maybe no, Marissa.
One second.
Marissa's not there.
They're checking, I think, for us.
Oh, they're checking.
Yeah.
All right, John, where do we find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at the John Carle, and of course my YouTube channel is called Whiskey and Waffles. We usually have stuff that involves drinking in some capacity, and always
perfect.
Always Uber and Lyft. Please be responsible.
Oh yeah, of course. And Carle is Carle.
That's correct.
I want to know.
Yep.
And guys, I'm at Undergaro, and a lot of you guys hit me on Twitter and iTunes and YouTube. Of course, you can always comment, but you people who hit me on Twitter, I really appreciate it, and yeah, it helps me a lot with how to guide the show. So thank you so much. And we still don't have word if there's when the next new show is. Nothing from the booth.
Nothing from the booth.
Nothing from the booth.
We're not sure.
We'll tweet it if there is.
All right, John. Thanks so much. Thank you so much, everyone, and we will see you at the next new Bar Rescue. Watch it over the holidays. Bar Rescue Marathon starting Wednesday. Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Keven Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.